Welcome to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. We believe life is about how we react. Welcome back to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. Sean, you visit Starbucks so much that you've always got a story. What do you got for us today?
You know, it's funny you say it that way because I always have a Starbucks in my hand when I go to work. I go to Starbucks every day, not because I'm rich, but because I'm an idiot. I think if I would stop going to Starbucks every day, I would be rich, right? We never know. But anyway,
they're related.
You're absolutely right. I didn't tell you the ins and outs, but I did mention I've got a Starbucks story. Last week, I'm at Starbucks waiting for my drink, and I've got the walker, right? I use that pretty much always outside of the house. As you might remember, and many of our listeners can imagine, when you're using a walker, but also carrying a cup of coffee, you've only got one hand free. And I have found it easier to control the walker when I'm off to the side and I'm holding the walker in one hand, right? Using one handle, but not having it right in front of me. Can you picture it? Does it make sense?
Yeah, like you're using the right hand handle on your left hand, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So it's easier to maneuver and control and walk at the same time when you're off to one side. So in doing that, it can be challenging to open a door, right? Because I've got a walker in one hand and an $18 drink in another hand. So I don't want to I don't want to fall, but I also don't want to drop my cup of gold. So, it takes a minute. I'm slow and I'm very methodical, right? I'm not in a hurry. So I do tend to wait for there to be an opening of the crowd so I don't slow anybody down. Well, this particular Starbucks is quite large and they have several doors. Well, as I'm pushing the door open, kind of like with my backside kind of, shimming out, somebody runs over and gets the door for me. Which, side note, sometimes I appreciate, sometimes it makes me angry. Because as we've mentioned, the weight of the door is helping me stay upright. Mm-hmm. So anyway, thankfully, I saw the guy coming, so I mentally and physically prepared for him to relieve the pressure of the door. So we're good. Yeah. And I'm like, God, thank you so much. Very kind. And you can tell English wasn't his first language. I don't know that made a difference, but maybe he didn't understand me or whatever. So I get through the door, and I say thank you, and kind of gesture like, hey, all right, have a good day. This guy holds the other handle of my walker and walked with me.
Oh, that's
all
nice.
The way to my car.
Oh my gosh.
Which isn't far. I was in a disabled spot or an ADA spot. But he was like, oh, where you go? Are you okay? Do you need, it was very, after about 20 seconds, it was kind of like, dude, get away from me. In my head. Right. But also I knew it was all out of kindness. He was just making sure that I was going to be okay. And he says something to the effect of where you're going, what car's yours, in broken language. So I'm not sure, don't quote me, but it was very obvious that he was deeply concerned for my safety. And for me, that was both really cool, but also really awkward.
Yeah.
Ultimately appreciated. It was I've never had anybody go that far.
It's almost like holding your hand. Like, here, I'm going to help you to your car. Yeah.
And I had said, like, oh, I'm good. I got it. Thank you. And at one point, I looked at him and was like, Yep, I do this every day. I'm good. And he was like, yeah, you sure? You're okay? Oh, so anyway, it was obvious he was coming from a wonderful, kind place. Right. So I appreciate the way he was willing to just jump in and be a solution for me.
Thinking of your method for carrying your coffee, using the walker with one hand, have you considered putting a cup holder on your walker so you can use both hands?
Wait, what?
Have you ever heard of a cup holder?
What is that? Okay. Yes, yep. I have. All right. I even bought one.
Okay.
Never used it and eventually threw it away.
Oh.
Here's the problem with cup holders designed for the road later. Those cup holders hang externally from the walker. So they're only convenient while walking. They're not convenient
when getting through doors.
Yeah. Or breaking it, folding it up and putting it in the car. So, although I agree, it would certainly be safer, I would spend half the time taking the cup holder on and off. It would be in the way 50% of the time.
That's actually part of the reason I don't have a cup holder on my chair. It's because it hangs externally and, All right, gotcha.
People say it all the time, though, when they see me walking, like, oh, you need a cup holder for that thing. And I'm like, yeah, you're so right. And I just keep walking. I'm like, great idea.
It's kind of like when somebody's like, oh, have you ever tried green juice? That'll cure your FA.
Oh, man. Such a good point. All right, Kyle, we're coming out of Thanksgiving. I know you got to spend it with family. You're still with family. Of course, I had a great time. Always look forward to the holidays. I'm curious, food-wise, do you have a favorite? Are you a pie person? Do you love pie year-round or only at the holidays? Like, tell me about you.
I don't necessarily go straight for the pie, but when I do go for pie, I go for pecan. I love me a pecan pie.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
I'm anti-nuts in any of my food. I can do raw, almonds or peanuts, but I don't like them in my cookies or brownies or my pies or anything of nature. I'm not a pie guy, but I will always enjoy pumpkin pie during the holidays, but only with whipped cream. Like, if somebody asks, hey, do you want a slice of pie? Do you have whipped cream? If the answer is no, then no, thank you. I don't want your pie. It's
all right. Noted.
Gotta have it. And also, apple pie needs vanilla ice cream.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
I just won't eat them if the complimentary side is not available.
Sean, we've been friends for a long time, but we've been working together very closely over the past 7 years or so. We both know there are things about each other that drive us nuts.
Sure.
But I think this quote really speaks to our friendship. A true friend is someone who thinks that you're a good egg, even though he knows you're slightly cracked. And that's by Bernard Meltzer. We're all flawed. We know that. And I think going into a friendship, it's good to keep in mind that our tolerance for our friends sometimes is going to be challenging.
Yeah.
And it's worth it because there's a reason that we're friends and that our friends are our friends because we really value them. Yeah. There are going to be rough times, and there are going to be little jabs here and there, but it all comes out in the end. One more time, A true friend is someone who thinks that you're a good egg, even though he knows you're slightly cracked, by Bernard Meltzer. And that's the quote of the week.
Well, Kyle, as our opening has indicated, today's episode is all about friendship. And we've highlighted the importance of family caregivers throughout the month. And we all know some family is chosen, some family is born connected, right? You're just in it. And I would say for you and I, we're chosen family to an extent in a lot of different ways. So folks, for today's episode, we found some questions online that we thought would be fun to ask each other as a way for us to get to know each other a little better, but also to allow you to get to know Sean and Kyle a little bit differently as well. We've stolen these questions from a resource available online put together by MindPath Health, and you can find them at mindpath.com. We're going to link the article that features some of the questions that Kyle and I are going to ask each other today. Side note, we did not talk together about which one. There's like 80 questions on this list, and we both said, okay, let's just choose 5 or so. We both independently grabbed the 5 that we thought might be fun and interesting to ask each other.
Sean, I want to go first.
Okay. Then go ahead, I guess.
All right. So I got a softball for you. First of all, which book or movie impacted you most growing up?
I guess it depends how you define impact, right? The first movie that comes to mind in my college years, it was one I watched a lot. It provided a lot of context for jokes with my friends. It's very nostalgic for me. Night at the Roxbury. I love Will Ferrell. I love Chris Kattan. And those two together in that film, everything about it, it's my kind of movie. So I'm going to have to say Night at the Roxbury.
I like that choice a lot. All right, your turn.
Kyle, I don't think I have any softballs on my list for you. So, the softest one maybe is, what is one thing on your bucket list?
First of all, I feel like I'm actively going after my bucket list, trying to stay active in that pursuit every year with different trips. When I was in college, I took a class on art history, and every other piece was from Istanbul or Constantinople. And so I want to go to Istanbul.
All right.
It's pretty simple, but that's one of the places that I want to make it to before I go, or that's on my bucket list.
Very cool.
Since it was on my list of questions, also, what is on your bucket list?
I've never been to New York City. That has to change. I've never been to Hawaii. And I really want to go to Ireland. So those 3 are certainly on my list. And of course, I got to mention, as you know, I want to stand on top of White Mountain.
We're so close.
So close.
Hundreds of yards away.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. All right, Kyle, what is something that keeps you up at night?
Day to day, I feel like it's just the prognosis of everything. Like, everything's up in the air. I mean, obviously, that's just the way things go. We've got the podcast, Farah, treatment and a cure for FA. I don't know, 100 things. And it's all swirling. And how do you calm your brain to get sleep at night? And, I use things like, I read a lot. Well, not a lot, because sometimes 4 sentences, but I read at night to calm my brain down. But I think it's just everything that keeps me up at night. Yeah, I don't know. That's not a very satisfying answer.
Well, but it's your answer, so can't judge.
What do you find most challenging in your life right now?
Besides you?
Yes, besides me.
There's probably a lot of things, but I will say at a very basic level, what's challenging is managing everything that's important to me. My mom, family's health, and spending time with them. My job, paying the bills. This show, and a few other things. But I will say, of all of it, most challenging, I got two. I don't like that I live so far away from my mom, and I don't like how difficult it is to manage my time in an effort that allows me to visit the gym on a more regular, consistent basis. Now, some of that is, my choice. It's not like it's impossible. It's just prioritizing things and my energy and rest. There are days where I might have plenty of time, like, oh, sweet, I got an hour and a half. So that's plenty of time for the gym. But I just am so drained. And I know it's like, okay, I could go to the gym and be worn out all week. Or I could go to bed early, and that'll help catch up for a few days.
So you haven't gone to the gym.
And then,
right?
Yeah, exactly. Or I get home and something else distracts me, and I'm still up late. Less energy stealing is one thing to sit at the computer and edit for 2 hours. It's a whole nother thing to walk around the gym for 2 hours, right? Lifting weights and pulling cables and whatever. So it is different, but the result seems the same often, and I find that challenging to balance. Similar question, Kyle, but instead of challenging, what frustrates you?
Something I've been thinking about recently is totally out of my control and out of our control. It has to do with the progression of my disease, and whether it's true or not, I strive to not let FA take over the things that I do. And I see it as not affecting my life. But then sometimes I observe myself. For example, when I want to go over to a friend's house, my neighbor's house is upstairs. She lives on the second floor. So she always has to come to my place, which is a little bit frustrating. And I have another friend who I go to see sometimes, and it's up a step to get into her place. It's really frustrating to realize that those seemingly simple things are keeping me from doing what I want to do. Also, as simple as getting out of bed in the morning. I hesitate sometimes because I'm like, all right, I gotta grab the thing and lure myself, and hopefully I don't fall on my butt. Just all the stuff that takes a little more time or a little more thought is frustrating to me more and more. And it's affecting my life more and more. It's just a matter of being patient and working with that stuff, because that's just the hand we're dealt.
And it's constantly changing, right? We've mentioned that before. Just when you're comfortable or you find a routine, you probably lose some other ability, and you've got to adjust all over again.
Previously, I never saw it as a frustrating thing. It was just a part of life. But I've been noticing more and more that it's creeping into my psyche that this is something I have to deal with and really figure out.
I think you put it to words well. So thank you for that answer.
All right. Here's a hard-hitting one. I want to see where this goes. Would you rather have people perceive you as being kind, smart, or attractive? You can only choose one. By the way, there is a right answer. Just kidding.
I'm going to say kind. I don't care if I'm smart or not. Attractive, it's vain, but I feel like that's always been important to me.
Yeah.
I also know I'm not the kindest individual. So I don't know. If I had to choose just one, I'd want people to think of me as kind.
So you're also choosing that based on what you perceive is a shortfall of like your personality.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Maybe. I don't think I'm not kind.
Right.
I can be cutting. Very sarcastic, very, what's the word?
Straightforward or...
Yeah, which I appreciate, being up front, whereas some people see that as being mean, which I can understand, both angles, but yeah, I suppose that does influence my answer. I also want to add, I was going through some old baby photos and family photos, and I think, I assume, I probably need a therapist for this. But I assume part of the reason why appearance is important to me is because as a child in middle school age, high school, I don't believe I was attractive. I had bad acne as a young man. I had, my nose was always bright red, freckles, a big forehead. So anyway, I found some pictures and I was like, oh. But then I also came across pictures when I began to hit college and that age of 18, 19, 20. And I was like, oh, dang. I was a good-looking dude when I was 20. But, man, I just look at pictures of me at 12 and 14. I'm like, oh, I would have made fun of me, too. So I feel like that has to have some sort of influence on my psyche, even today.
When you're looking in the mirror, when you're young, and saying, I don't quite like what I see, that influences from then on.
All right, I suppose this one might also be a softball. Where is the most awe-inspiring place you've been?
That's easy. The Sawtooth Mountain Range in Idaho. We rode there, and it was on like day 20 of our off-road bike trip. And looking at the Sawtooth Mountain, it was beautiful. I think I talked about it on the podcast before. There was 1 million grasshoppers flying through the air.
Wow.
And then we had a view of the Sawtooth Mountain Range, which it was amazing, just jagged peaks. We were looking at it for like an hour as we're riding through the middle of nowhere, and we rode our bikes there.
Yeah. How easy it is to forget those places exist when you live in the big city or a city and you spend much of your life on the freeway or in the city. You totally forget that nature is much, much bigger than you realize.
All right, Sean, how do you cope when things get hard?
Ooh, I crawl up in the fetal position and cry.
I mean, that's one approach for sure.
Yeah. I don't know that I have one answer. It will probably depend on the situation, but I can tell you that I don't give up. I will try again. I will recenter. I will reevaluate, but I won't sit it out. So if it's a big deal, I'll probably call a friend, maybe my mom, just to run the scenario by them.
Right.
Maybe just turn music on, be with my own thoughts in a way. Like when I say turn music on and be with my own thoughts, I mean, I typically listen to soundtracks. So no lyrics, just...
That's right.
Just, music that moves me emotionally. I feel like that helps me gain clarity here and there. Sometimes I'll go for a drive. I love that.
Don't things come to you when you're driving? Like when you're doing something that requires mindless concentration.
I will say I also still lean on the game of Risk on my phone. To me, that's an outlet. It can be a distraction at times, procrastination. But if I'm at a point where things are really hard, or I'm really frustrated, or I'm just spent, I am happy to find a corner or lay on the bed for 30 minutes and play a game. Kyle, last one for you. And this one I leaned on because, in a sense, it's also a nod to what has been the National Family Caregivers Month. And I think it could be valuable for our friendship and those around you. Everybody knows we all need help from time to time, if not every day. So how do you like to receive care? And you can interpret that any way you want, whether it's food or doctor's appointment or traveling. How do you like to receive care?
The way I like to receive care is when someone really understands what I'm trying to do, and they conform themselves to that. I'm going back again to the case of the Starbucks guy. They helped you. He was really nice, but there was an aspect of it that you kind of resent. Like, you don't understand. Like, I do this all the time.
Yeah.
So when somebody takes the time to really understand, and I feel like they're understanding me, that's really how I like to receive care. What about you, Sean? In honor of National Family Caregiver Month, how do you like to receive care?
I think about a conversation we had not too long ago on a previous episode. It's not too often that I've been in a position where I need care in the sense of regular or ongoing. But what I do know is what I don't like. And that's when somebody won't stop asking or being in the way, even though they're not being in the way on purpose. Recently, we talked about, hey, it's great if you want to offer, like, hey, can I grab that for you? Can I pick that up for you? Can I do this for you? But if the answer is no, I want you to go away.
Yeah.
Don't stop and stare, and don't persist. If I needed help or I felt like it was going to put me in an awkward position, I would say, yes, please. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. Oh, awesome. Here, hold that. But more often than not, mentally and physically, I'm prepared to do it all. Whether it's a muscle thing or a brain thing or just our inability to move quick, once that flow starts, it is more detrimental to try to stop than to just do what I'm used to doing. And that's something people just don't understand. I don't hold it against them for not understanding, but it's also, I don't know the best way to say, move, get out of the way, without being rude.
No, thank you, move.
Yeah. I joked about it with Sheila, right? My cruise friend, with somebody that knows. I'm like, all right, hey, you can't stop in front of me while we're walking and talking. Like, talk all you want, but keep walking. So anyway, It's all good. I get it. Nobody's trying to ruin my day, but that's little stuff that, unless you're in that position, you wouldn't think about. You wouldn't realize is an issue.
All right. I appreciate the thoughtful answers and the great conversation today.
Well, Kyle, me too. And I like keeping it somewhat lighthearted, especially as we are wrapping the season up with today's episode. Season 10 has been a phenomenal ride, and we appreciate you for joining in every week and being a part of the season. Kyle, let's close this out like we do every episode with some thank you notes. We believe in the power of gratitude and expressing thanks as a way of keeping us grounded. So I'm saying thank you to some friends of my mother who agreed to drive an hour and a half almost to pick her and I up from the airport late at night. And, my mom's in her 70s. I would say a lot of her friends are also near or in their 70s. So to have friends willing to drive that kind of distance at 10 o'clock at night is a big deal. So I'm saying thank you to Mom's church friends who went out of their way to get us a ride from the airport.
I want to say thank you to Mike at Mike's Bike Shop in Berlin, Wisconsin. Random place, but I had a friend who had a trike, and we were trying to get it to somebody else who lives in Ohio. And Mike doesn't usually deal with trikes. He doesn't sell trikes in a shop. But he agreed to pack up the trike, and I sent him a shipping label, and it got shipped off. And it was something outside of his normal operations.
Sure.
But he did it for us, and so I really appreciate Mike.
Yeah, it's huge. When people are willing to go out of the normal, to me, that's world class. He could have said no, and you wouldn't have held a grudge. But the fact that he's like, yeah, let's figure it out. The fact that he was willing to try something new and be okay with that is a big deal. Thank you, Mike. As I mentioned, we are linking the article that features some of the questions we talked about today. So please be sure to visit our show notes at twodisableddudes.com for that link.
We'd love for you to share this episode with a friend and subscribe on any of your podcast apps. And while you're there, leave a review. It really helps us out. It is holiday season. We wish everyone happy holidays. We won't be producing episodes again until February. However, we've got 237 other episodes that you can listen to. So we'd love for you to think about going back and listening to an old episode. Until season 11, keep living with urgency. Thank you for listening to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. This show is possible with your support. Visit twodisableddudes.com to donate.
Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app.